right, well, we're ready to begin, and today we have a special colleague from our East Falls campus, Sztandera. I think I said it right. Okay. He's a professor of computational intelligence. He's got credentials from here to eternity. 26 years as a tenured faculty member at Jefferson, East Falls. And we are just delighted to have him. Very recently, he gave a presentation at Oxford University. He has international credentials. He's a Fulbright scholar and professor at the University of Lisbon. Some of the work that he does is very out of the box, which is part of the reason that we feel very fortunate to have him as part of the Jefferson family. And without any further ado, you're lavalier up, right? You're good? Okay. All right, so, and you can walk around and begin. So please join me in welcoming Les.
In classrooms, that's the topic of our conversation and the talk today. We create collaborative environments. We play innovation games. Some of them are funny. We are going to see some of them. But they are very, very powerful in terms of getting the empathy. Empathy from patients, from stakeholders, from clients, from customers, and the consumers. We've got to differentiate the consumer from the customer. The consumer utilizes the services, right? Or utilizes the product. The customer is the one who pays for it. Sometimes these guys are the same. The consumer is the same as the customer. Sometimes they are different. If you buy a toy for your kid, the kid is the consumer, but the parent is the customer because he or she pays for it. So we utilize those innovation games, and obviously, I never thought I would reach out to design disciplines, but you guys are medical sciences, MDs, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, absolutely wonderful space here. We are looking forward to October when the 24 countries come here and visit this place. In October, that coincides with the Design Philadelphia. So the whole collaboration process, you will see some of the pictures. They are sort of a bit outrageous, but these are my pictures. Here's a nice example of the collaboration process. We have to agree to the purpose of the exercise, right? And we play those innovation games, and we're going to step through some of them. You will see how we ask different questions, completely different questions, to get to the bottom of the issue. And we play charades. I never used this word. Apparently, a charade is an innovation game in architecture. So we adopted the charades there. And we cluster the items that have similar properties. And for example, the customers, we group them together and we form clusters, right? There's no label. As soon as we assign a label, it becomes a class. So it could be big spenders, could be South Jersey, it could be specific zip code. But you have all of those social demographics and all of those tests, medical tests, measurements. It's all combined together. We utilize a computational intelligence approach like artificial neural networks or genetic algorithms to optimize all of that and come up with the solution. And obviously, that's a nice picture. What are they doing there? Anyone would like to guess? Yeah, they are drinking beer. But they work as a team. They have to move that vehicle along the road. They have to obey the signs, right? So I enjoyed that picture. We utilize, and I see, guys, it's all design thinking here. But again, we utilize design thinking. We have to do our best to understand the problem. So we invite the stakeholders. We provide some guidelines for the solutions, and we have to reframe as we go along to try to achieve that solutions from different angles. So again, we have to involve all the stakeholders, not just the patient, not just the client, not just the customer. So we have to use empathy. And I'm going to touch upon empathy over and over and over again. Empathy is the key. So we use empathy, we define. There's the whole process of ideation, and then we prototype, we test, we break. Again, coming from students coming from different disciplines, they really have the guidance of the faculty in different disciplines And the software helps us. If you don't have your own intelligence, use the computational one. It's a bad joke, but that's what we do. But we have the guidance of experts from industry, right? They come and they review. We have review sessions with students, and obviously we sign. There is the non-disclosure agreement. There is intellectual property rights. It's all being done and taken by the wonderful office right here in Center City that works with us. So we have to agree on the purpose of the project, and sometimes it's being reframed. We are working on designing a hospital for patients suffering with dementia right now in Finland. And it has been a struggle because we have reframed the problem so many times. And the architects are tired of designing all of that. The computational program designed the whole space, but also it's about empathy. You have to look forward and you have to look backwards. So basically, you have to know what job the project is trying to accomplish and what problem are you trying to solve. You meet in the middle, and that's the common ground. So we have to do the right things. Here's one of our students exercising, and balancing, doing the right things and doing things right. So how do we accomplish all of that? Through the collaborations, through all of those interactions, through the innovation games. So they are very proven technique to really work out the problem using the design thinking, and they are means of fueling innovation. Again, I mentioned innovation is a buzzword, but we really deliver. Some of the projects have outcomes that at the end of the semester, it goes right into the production line. The hospital we designed, again in Finland, Helsinki University Hospital in 2016. It's coming up, that unit is coming up in 2021. Right now, the neurological practice, we are completely redesigning the building. She would like to have it very, very soon. So we touch upon empathy. We understand the client and the real needs behind it. So I would claim it's a perfect setting, and we are going to see some of those games right now and some of the results. And I teach market research as a first semester, and then we have the new product development as a second semester. But that's completely different market research. It's not the observational. We do the mystery shopping. We do the observational research. So we go into hospitals, we observe. But the students actually have to wear the shoes. So if, we will have an example in a minute, if we are asking someone to redesign the car, and we were I think one of the biggest projects we had one for Airbus, but we had one for Audi as well. But the students actually have to go and change the oil. They have to experience that. So they really have to step into the shoes, of that. And then we observe them. We record all the verbal, non-verbal, written comments, visual comments, and touching upon that empathy, we reveal clients' true needs. And it's really, really something. I just came back from South Africa working. We are going to work with one of the largest hospitals there. 7,000 patients daily. It stretches for miles. It was quite a touching experience. With the patients lining up outside the hospital for miles with the families. Really a challenge, but I think we can address some of the needs there and work it very, very well. What it makes our innovation games unique is that we touch upon empathy. Here you see the traditional market research, right? So on one hand, if we do the traditional market research, so we do surveys, we do observational research, we do focus groups, we do secondary research, review all the papers, and we do interviews and all of that stuff. So basically, we know that the client doesn't know, and we are enforcing it and trying to extract that information. That's very traditional. On the other hand, we know that they know, and we're still going to go observe them and all of that stuff. The innovation games are different. We are getting different insights. That's why you have those breakthrough collaborations and innovations there. We don't know that they don't know, right? So we are going through all of that, playing those games, and getting those insights, touching upon empathy, and then creating hopefully a solution that is going to be refined a number of times. So we ask different questions, right? And that forces the client to look at themselves at a completely different perspective. And that very often encourages a breakthrough to succeed. So here's one of the questions we ask. We don't ask, how tall are you? We ask, who tall are you? So who tall are you, right? So what do you aspire to? Who is your sort of leader? Who is someone who is going to guide you? What are you trying to achieve in your life? And then slowly but surely, we go through all of those questions. What will happen if you don't take this step? What will things look like if you are successful? Suddenly there's a breakthrough. So with patients, with clients, and they have that product, they have that service, and they know that all the cousins twice removed have suffered from it. Suddenly they have that room and to wiggle and we come up with the service to recommend, or the product to recommend for them. What are you doing currently that you are not achieving your potential, right? What's the main obstacle? What are you most proud of? So again, not how tall you are, but who tall you are, and things like this. So it's completely different questions. So a very nice example, our doctoral mentor for students takes his 96-year-old mother to a hospital. Nice lady, a little bit old, still very powerful, Italian, coming from Sicily. Well, she wouldn't go to the hospital with her son until she bakes a tomato pie, makes some coffee, and they go to the doctor's office. She wouldn't walk in and until she sees a nurse or a doctor eating a piece of tomato pie and drinking coffee with her son. Then she can go and be seen by the doctor, but then she's fine, she wants to go home. But you have to touch upon different cultural aspects, and that's the empathy, and you wouldn't know it, and you have to experience that. So here are some of the examples of the innovation games we play, and we step through some of them, explaining what we do there, like 20/20 vision, trimming the tree, apprentice. Some of them, they have computer science connections like the web. But let's have a look at them and see what we can accomplish with them. And again, it differs based on the project. It differs based on the challenge. And then we go from there. So if we would like to basically understand the customer needs, we can play some of those 5 games there, give them a tap, and again, we're going to go through them. The product functionality, buy a feature, how much they are willing to suffer or pay for a specific service. The speedboat, where you lift some of those obstacles there, and shaping your future product, we will do the 20/20 vision. So let's have a look at them. The first one, the apprentice, I already touched upon that, right? So if we are designing a database system, we are going to ask the students to actually work as data entry. So they have to see what it takes to enter the data, whether they are medical images. You have different types of data. You have text, numbers, images, audio, and video. You have to digitize everything and enter it. It's a very painful process when you enter something into the database. If you build a workflow management software for a furniture delivery company, you're going to ask the students to deliver the furniture and see what it takes. And I mentioned if you're building the system to analyze vehicle, your car performance data, you ask the students to change the oil. So work as a mechanic. But again, they have to step in. And some of the challenging projects were really, really challenging. For Uganda, for example, they were designing a system there. The students actually had to go there and see what it takes to be there. So the whole thing is to create empathy for the customer experience, sort of step into their shoes, experience that, and see what we can learn and how we can help. Obviously, we've been doing it for years. We have our own avenues and paths to pursue, but that changes our perspective and helps us to reframe the problem. Then there's a speedboat. identify what customers don't like about the process, the system. Right? Here's the lady from Sicily. She would like to really establish the trust before she goes to the doctor's office. But basically, that's a speedboat that has anchors. And every anchor has some sub-problem that we try to elevate and basically eliminate. And basically, how fast the speedboat goes is really the estimate of pain or the process they go through. And we are trying to help them to eliminate some of those obstacles. It was a fantastic project. We use it for many, many projects. For the Federal Mogul, we are going into 8th year right now. Yesterday, they were on campus reviewing our 66 students' progress on that project. Prune the tree. Basically, some of the products or the services we offer, they have all of those attachments. They have so many extra appendices, and all of those extra services. Here, all the stakeholders, they use index cards, and they basically rank them. How can you eliminate some of those tests, unnecessary tests, perhaps, or some of the unnecessary adventures or things you have to go through, and you basically prune the tree to your success, to the goal. And again, we help them. We try to involve experts as we go down the road. Another thing is to know what it takes to step into the hospital, right, into the emergency room. So we had a number of projects where we were designing the head walls of the future for patient beds at the different hospitals. The students really had to go there, observe. Again, they are not medical students, so you have to appreciate the challenge. They are business students, they are design students, they are architecture students. But we have to understand how the customer or the consumer, it might be, uses the product or the service. So we basically, again, it's stepping into their shoes, and we ask them to describe how they do it. We observe them, and we do it with them. And we'll see what helps, what hinders their success, and they have to basically describe the whole day, and we go from there. Another one is buy a feature. How much pain they are going to suffer, or how much money they are going to be willing to pay for eliminating some of those exercises and some of those tests, perhaps. So they buy a feature. We play the game. You cannot, if you are really rich, you cannot buy all of them. So there are restrictions in the game, and the simulation helps us. But we played in the classroom. So what I do, we usually teach Mondays, Wednesdays. On Mondays, we do the lectures. On Wednesdays, we work on the project. We play those innovation games. We take the field trips. We invite the companies every 2 weeks to come and review. Show and tell. We ask the patients, clients, customers, consumers, to tell us how they modified a product or how they adjusted to a service, right, to serve their needs. So sometimes they buy things because it's advertised, it works, but actually, when grandma was trying to press all of those buttons on the remote, they're small enough. It's really designed without the empathy. So we ask them, how did you play with your product or service? How did you improve it? And then we go and take that path, and we basically recommend a new product, a new service. And sometimes there are very innovative, unexpected ways how they play around with it. We also touch on empathy to have the customer hidden needs, right? So that's me and my shadow. So basically, we watch them. Might be a little bit creepy, but you have the observational research in the traditional market research approach. So we basically follow them. And we ask them, why did you do it? Oh, it's a routine. Well, did you think about taking the elevator, or did you think about taking the steps for a change? And things like this, and why are you doing this? And then see what helps them. Sometimes they have those very unusual, innovative artifacts that help them, we are going to utilize it down the road. 2020 vision. Again, coming back to the question, who tall you are? What's your perfect vision? What are your priorities and how we are trying to achieve them, right? It's like sitting, being fitted for your glasses. Again, we play with the index cards, they identify it, and we assign value to every single feature. And again, it's just not Mary Smith, it has to be, well, we touch upon every single individual, but it has to be enough of them to have a specific product. Sometimes the product could be customized for a single person, but if there's enough of patients suffering from something, we are going to adjust the product or the service based on some of those features. So we place the index cards face down. They're going to pick it up and see, tell us whether they do it or they don't do it or they modify it. So again, it's one of the games. Remember the future. That's a beautiful game where we understand the customer's definition of success, right? So he or she is suffering from something. All the 21 cousins, twice removed, had the same issue. We ask them those different questions and see what would be the success, how they would like to achieve the goal. And remember, the key point is, what will the system have done in 2 years for you? Not what the system should do. So we have something and we try to forecast the future. So let's use elections. We'll have completely different healthcare in 2 years or something like this. And then we design a service or a product already for that. And then we reflect 2 years from now, that's how the service is being used. 4 years from now, and then we reflect upon it, try to accommodate all of those socio-economic factors and political issues or what might be out there. Another one, very funny one, give them a hot tap. Again, trying to discover some of the features, how they modify their way to the doctor's office, how they modify the product, and sometimes it's very unusual features of the product. Obviously, if you have a remote, can you open the bottle of beer with it or something? We put them in very outrageous situations, trying to mimic what they have done to accommodate the services of the products, and then we recommend something for them that is going to work for them, and not just for Mary Smith. It's going to work for most of them, and hopefully it's going to be embraced and worth the price. Spider web. We are operating within a system, right? So we have all of those connections, and we are putting connections between different services, different products, and we can price them, we can estimate the pain, and basically we will make those connections and we'll optimize them. Again, we can do it. The algorithm can do it even very well, even sometimes better. The last one, it's more sort of how do you promote yourself? So it's a beautiful space here. I hope it's going to be promoted when the 24 countries are coming here to visit us, and they are from the design, International Design Factory Network. But again, what are the features that are catching your attention? How do you advertise your services or the products? So here the students, they design basically a packaging, a product box. So we are working on it right now for the packaging for medical marijuana, and it could be for little kids suffering from cancer. It could be for vets, right? Or it could be for some freaks who would like to have a leather pouch with their initials engraved on them. But again, you have to understand the customer, what are they willing to pay, and it's a challenge. So how do you put all of those innovation games to use? Well, not yet. We have to understand the problem. We have to do the basic market research, the observational, but we play all of those games, and we ask them, what are your questions? If we provide you with guidelines or answers, what would you do with them? We select the appropriate game, we play the game, we analyze the data, again, the data is different type. We have the recordings, we have images, we have audio, video, and we present the results and take action. So let's see the action. Here's one of the projects we are going to be engaged in September of 2019. I just came back from South Africa, from the University of Johannesburg. Here are our heroes, first responders, right there on a different part of campus. We are going to work with them. We are going to work with them utilizing genetic algorithms and artificial neural networks to optimize the EMS services in South Africa. And we are going to extend it to Rwanda. We have Dr. Elizabeth Liz Krebs, who is working there, and perhaps Malawi, where Chris Harnish is putting his touches on architecture there. But I didn't take the ride, but there were exercises going on for the emergency services. It's a very, very powerful engagement. I'm working with Dr. Derman from the global office and with the vice chancellor and the principal of the University of Johannesburg, who yesterday gave an honorary doctorate to our previous US ambassador to United Nations. And they are coming here at the first week of April, so let's see what happens there. It's going to be a very exciting project, so how you can improve operations and management of medical emergency services in Johannesburg, South Africa. Another one that I'm very proud of, we are in the second semester of it. We are designing a clinic for patients suffering from dementia. The clinic that adjusts to the patient and their needs. So we have very fancy virtual reality and software there. We are under non-disclosure agreement, but the students made a wonderful pitch at the beginning of January. We have a very fancy gala in May, and we are looking forward to it. Another one, one of our, actually two of our alumni approached me, and that's Under Armour. And they asked me, well, you have so many college athletes, you have so many sports on your campus. Could you involve with, the East Falls was a textile tradition. Could you involve your students in designing new outfits, perhaps with some medical sensors? But it was open, it was very broad, right? So we didn't jump into whatever medical sensors. We have 150 students over 2 semesters. My class is going through slowly but surely the project. Over 100 of them were from School of Business, 50 of them were from Design and Engineering, and we visited Baltimore. It's not Detroit, it's Baltimore, but there are challenges there. We visited the headquarters there. Absolutely splendid support from the company. 2 of our alumni working there. Guess what the students did? So let's see how we can play. To make all athletes better, the students basically said that first responders are different types of athletes. Let's serve their needs. So we designed beautiful uniforms for the first responders. It started with the college athletes, the students who play basketball and baseball, ended up with first responders. So you never know. You have to reframe it, but absolutely different approach. Another one, we finished the Population Science Initiative. It's a strategic initiative for the Thomas Jefferson University. So I had a team of students in my doctoral class working on art therapy in emergency rooms in hospitals. And again, they come from different backgrounds. Here's the lady who is in charge of the Baptist church in Philadelphia. She really enjoyed it. She was a bit intimidated at the very beginning of the project with all of those fancy words, the genetic algorithms, the neural networks. But she played those games. She played them at at her church. We played them in some of the locations in Philadelphia. Absolutely wonderful project where you can utilize the innovation games and the power of computational intelligence to address some of the issues. So we know Thomas Jefferson University that sometimes it's not your DNA, it's not your blood tests or medical tests. It's your credit card score and the zip code that will tell you about life expectancy. So go on the Broad Street, you go 2 miles down the road, the life expectancy drops 20 years right here in Philadelphia. So challenging project, it's not population health, it's science, it's data-based, and all of that empathy, and out of data making recommendations. Another one, again, I'm very proud of this, very, very proud of this. We had, that's my one team from of the 2 teams in my classes where we entered the challenge. It was a challenge posed by the US Department of Defense. And we, very sophisticated staff, Executive Office for Chemical and Biological Defense, they were seeking innovative ideas from the public, not just the students, from public. So the private companies entered. The government couldn't enter, but private companies entered, experts entered, and our students entered. From my master level class, entered the competition, competing with companies, competing with all the professionals. They won the first place, $55,000 from the Department of Defense to design outfits for soldiers, right? Again, it's not my field of expertise, but you know what we did? We went out. One of the students, her brother was a Navy SEAL. So we interviewed them, sat down with the focus groups, but we played the innovation games. So we knew exactly where the problem is and how to address it. So again, if someone is in the field, they're going to do it. We had a military designer coming to our classes talking, but it was different because there was someone on the field, a Navy SEAL and all his mates talking to us. Outstanding first place, $55,000 going right to the team. The second team was a runner-up. So again, and we had business students there, we have engineering students there, and we had design students there. Another one, very proud of, just business students, innovation MBA students. They earned second place in the national, this one is a student competition, Advanced Textile Student Design Challenge for the face mask. So what we did, we basically, the students designed a face mask that from a distance, of some distance, you cannot even tell that's a face mask. So the stigma is being dropped, right? So it matches the color of your skin. And it has all the antimicrobial properties and fantastic project, and prevents against cold and flu, reusable, and all of that stuff with the marketing going along. So they called it the Guardian. Another one I mentioned before, going back to our partnership with Aalto University and Design Factory there. I have usually 1 or 2 projects for the last 7 years, collaborating with Aalto and other institutions in Australia and in South Korea. We just had a very nice presentation with the South Korean guys for current project in New York. But we were working on the trauma unit for one of the best hospitals in Europe. It ranks one of the 10th the first medical centers in Europe, the Helsinki University Central Hospital. Again, we did it in 2016 with a fancy gala. It's coming up in 2021. We had 5 students from our team. We had an architect from Finland and 6 students from Aalto University working on this project. Again, business students, design students. And that concludes my presentation. I will welcome any questions, and I hope you enjoyed that.
So you've heard a lot of really interesting project stories, insights into how Les drives an innovation agenda in his academic and professional life. I'm sure there's a couple of questions in here somewhere.
Dan, you can have a question.
Thank you very much. Oh,
No, she was just
okay.
teasing me.
Oh. Thank you very much for the insight into your program. So very often the success of any such group depends on the chemistry and dynamics
Absolutely.
of the team. What are some of the techniques you might use to get them off the ground and running?
Right. So usually we invite the company, that's the kickoff of the project at the very beginning of the semester, and they pose a challenge. On another day, yet another company comes to my class, poses a challenge. The students have a week or two to reflect and write one-pager. How would they fit and which project they would prefer? And then we can still reshuffle them, we can select them, they can participate in the sort of competition, but we very carefully select them. So we don't want to disappoint the client. We don't want to compromise the basically experience the students are going to have going through every single chapter of the textbook for the new product development, for the market research, yet working on the project. That's quite a chunk of the grade. So it differs from 40 to 60% in some of the cases. But they have to reflect upon it, write a pager. Even if we work with overseas with Aalto University, it's the same thing. Sometimes the professor comes here, but we do the live teleconference where they have a selection of the projects, and again, they have to write. And they never know how they are going to be assigned. We try to keep them together, but they never know. So they have the first choice, the second choice, and the third choice. And they might not like it. I have some of the fashion students right now, fashion merchandising students working on the design for the neurological clinic. So they didn't like it at the very beginning, but they embraced the project. We have an architect there, we have engineers there, we have some of the MDs helping us out. So it's a challenge, but it takes about 2 weeks, and they have to basically pitch, make their pitch, and we would accept them or relocate them.
In my experience dealing with collaborative groups,
Right.
One of the things that always arises is conflict. And in fact, it's a blessing and a curse sometimes, because out of conflict, good things can happen. Do you teach your students how to model conflict, how to deal with conflict? And then I have a shorter second question, and that is, how do you measure your outcomes? In other words, what is the end game here?
Right. To basically work with the conflict, obviously it happens. It happens every single semester. We have students who would like to dominate, and there's always a fight between. We try to adjust. Extreme cases, we move the students to another team. But we try to adjust, and we vote in one of the slides. You had the voting for the concepts. So yes, there is a struggle, and we try to address. So we have 1 or 2 class sessions where we try to address all of those situations. And sometimes those charrettes and some of the innovation games help us to basically not perhaps eliminate, but address that conflict problem. The outcomes, again, we have to adhere by the accreditation agencies. So for every single class, there's an outcome, academic outcome. There are learning goals and how do you achieve them. But we also have a set of outcomes set up by the client. And we do not guarantee. Usually, I don't take anything which is not sponsored. So some of them are big fish, big money, Department of Defense, but some of them are smaller companies. They still have to pay the fee. We signed a non-disclosure agreement, or we signed the intellectual property agreement. However, we do not guarantee the outcome for the company. So we had a number of projects that basically been shelved by the company. outstanding ideas, but they didn't have the resources to implement it, or they were too small of the company. We had a project for windmills on commercial buildings. We put one windmill in Kentucky on Walmart. We tried here in Philadelphia, the students broke the roof of grandma's house, but we still designed a beautiful windmill that has a lift mechanism. So you have the wind, basically, it's very heavy. So the wind lifts it up. And there's a balancing mechanism. There's a nice video on YouTube with our students doing it. But again, we do not guarantee to the client anything. We try to do our best. I've been working on 40+ projects where I've been the principal investigator, co-investigator, or senior investigator. We never flipped yet. There was one very, very close, which was really a challenge. Designing hydrogen refueling stations for California. But we managed finally, but it was a challenge where you really need an expertise. But again, we don't promise anything. Yes?
Yes, so in the news, 2 planes have crashed, same model, and apparently it's a design failure. The process broke down along the way, and we wind up with people dying as a result. How do you teach that in your classes for students to design essentially to avoid failure or to learn from failure?
Right. Again, I personally placed it on the human part. So there's lots of sophisticated software in all of those electronics outside. And we rely on the software, but it's also the human touch. That's why it's not, I won't allow the computational intelligence to do the diagnosis on the patient. You really have to, so it's a balance. We talk about the risks, and another approach we use is the fuzzy sets and systems. It's called the fuzzy logic, where you have the linguistic terms and you evaluate the possible risks associated with it. We had a project for Airbus for 2020 Olympic Games in Japan, redesigning the interior of the 320 Airbus to have space for wheelchairs and things like special accommodations. Again, fantastic project. They're doing the Skype with friends all the time. But again, I agree. You cannot rely too much on the software. You have to touch on the human part, and you have to really alert the students as well as the client about the
We have a
possible
question back
consequences.
here, and
Right.
then this will be our last question here. So,
Question back there.
Hi. How do you recruit users for your testing phase?
Testing. So again, with the windmill, it was grandma. And for some of those issues, we go into sort of family connections, the cousins twice removed, the Navy SEALs because they are it's tough. Usually we go to the sponsor and they make recommendations. So for example, the construction companies that come to me with different projects, they recommend the testing sites. So we work with one of the construction companies, and they recommended someone who works with just hospitals. So that's the site to test it. To some extent, we can utilize some of the facilities we have and utilize some of the facilities we have downtown. But usually it's the client who recommends the partners for the testing site, or the client himself.
and this, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And this will be our last question.
Just had a follow-up on that one. So it was a follow-up on your comment, which to Les, wouldn't you say that was more of a process failure than a design failure? Because if the process had enough iterations and testing, you would not have gotten to that phase of
Absolutely,
failure.
but
And
it
just
might
to
have
stress
to
the
also
importance of
been
the process.
our sort of trust in all of that sophisticated stuff. But sometimes we hurry up and try to achieve the goal without proper testing, and I agree.
And now that the FBI has joined the investigation, I think they'll figure out whether it was a design failure or a judgment failure or some combination thereof. Let us thank our guest, the amazing
Appreciate
Sztandera.
that. Thank you.
Again, thank you all for coming to the vault. Those of you who haven't been here before, you're free to look around. We are very proud of the really cool stuff that happens. Some of the cool stuff that happens at Jefferson happens here. So thank you for coming to the vault for the speaker series.